Set fire to her Ada County home, killing her husband and 2 children.
Do you call it death row?
No, we call it life row.
I didn't know what was coming, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
If you think that men are the only ones who can commit heinous crimes, and women can just commit shoplifting, then you are completely wrong, because today, we will show you the shocking and chilling stories of women who have committed some of the most horrific acts imaginable, starting with Robin Lee Rowe. Robin Lee Rowe, born on September 12, 1957, gained notoriety as a death row inmate in Idaho following her conviction for a tragic crime. On February 10, 1992, a fire erupted in a Boise apartment where her estranged husband Randy and their 2 children, Joshua and Tabitha, resided. Tragically, all 3 perished from carbon monoxide poisoning. Investigators determined that the fire was intentionally started using a liquid accelerant, and disturbingly, the smoke alarm had been disabled. Rowe quickly emerged as the prime suspect. Her troubled history included a suspicious fire in 1980 that claimed the life of her son Keith, for which she collected a substantial insurance payout. This incident raised red flags during the investigation into the 1992 deaths. Further scrutiny revealed financial motives. Rowe had been embezzling funds from her job at the YMCA and had taken out hefty life insurance policies on her family members, amounting to over $250,000. Following her arrest on February 13, 1992, Rowe faced a trial in 1993, where she was found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder. The presiding judge sentenced her to death on December 16, 1993. Despite numerous appeals over the years, including a dismissal of her appeal in 2011 by U.S. District Court Judge B. Lynn Windmill, Rowe remains incarcerated at the Pocatello Women's Correctional Center, the only female death row inmate in Idaho. Antoinette Frank. Antoinette Renee Frank, born on April 30, 1971, gained infamy as the only woman on Louisiana's death row following a heinous crime spree. On March 4, 1995, she and accomplice Rogers Lacaze perpetrated a violent armed robbery at Kim An, a Vietnamese restaurant in New Orleans. Frank, a former officer of the New Orleans Police Department, used her position to gain access. During the robbery, Frank and Lacaze brutally murdered Xiao Vu and her siblings, Ha and Quang Vu. The crime unfolded as Chow attempted to hide money in the kitchen, only to be confronted by Frank entering through a stolen key. Lacaze fatally shot Officer Williams, and Frank proceeded to pistol whip and then shoot Ha and Quang Vu, leaving a trail of devastation in her wake. Frank's trial in 1995 was swift and conclusive. Despite attempts to argue for mitigating circumstances, including claims of childhood trauma and potential PTSD, she was found guilty on all counts of first-degree murder. The jury took a mere 22 minutes to reach a guilty verdict, a record at the time for a capital murder case in New Orleans. The following day, they recommended the death penalty, which was swiftly imposed on October 20, 1995. Blanche Taylor Moore. Blanche Taylor Moore, born on February 17, 1933, is a convicted murderer awaiting execution in North Carolina. Moore's troubled life took a criminal turn after the death of her first husband in 1973, initially attributed to a heart attack. Over the years, suspicions grew as more deaths followed under suspicious circumstances, linked to arsenic poisoning. Her second husband, Raymond Reed, fell critically ill and died in 1986, initially diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome, until toxicology reports revealed fatal levels of arsenic. Moore's pattern of poisoning continued with her third husband, the Reverend Dwight Moore, whom she also attempted to kill using arsenic after their marriage in 1989. Arrested on July 18, 1989, Moore faced charges including first-degree murder and assault with a deadly weapon. Her trial in Winston-Salem in 1990 was bolstered by overwhelming evidence, including testimony from 53 witnesses. Despite maintaining her innocence, Moore was convicted on November 14, 1990, and sentenced to death by lethal injection just months later, a sentence upheld through numerous appeals and legal maneuvers. Currently incarcerated at the North Carolina Correctional Institution for Women, Moore has spent over 3 decades on death row, engaging in creative pursuits such as writing music and poetry, amid ongoing health challenges that have required chemotherapy and radiation therapy. Donna Roberts. Donna Marie Roberts, born on May 22, 1944, holds the distinction of being the sole woman on death row in Ohio. Convicted in 2003, Roberts was found guilty of complicity in aggravated murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Her involvement centered around her affair with Nathaniel E. Jackson, who, while serving a prison sentence for another crime, planned and executed the murder of Roberts' ex-husband, Robert Fingerhut, on December 11, 2001, at their shared residence. In 2020, the Ohio Supreme Court halted Roberts' execution pending the exhaustion of all state post-conviction proceedings and appeals. This legal maneuver has temporarily suspended any immediate execution plans, extending Roberts' stay on death row indefinitely. Shauna Ford. Shauna Ford, born on December 6, 1967, gained notoriety as a member of the vigilante group Minutemen American Defense. On May 30, 2009, Ford, along with accomplices Jason Eugene Bush and Albert Gaxiola, committed a brutal home invasion in Arivaca, Arizona. Their victims were Raul Flores Jr. and his 9-year-old daughter, Brisenia Ileana Flores. During the invasion, Ford orchestrated the crime, which included armed robbery and premeditated murder, while Bush and Gaxiola executed the violent acts. Tragically, Raul and Brisenia lost their lives in the attack, and Gina Gonzalez, Raul's wife and Brisenia's mother, survived after exchanging gunfire with the intruders. In 2011, Ford was convicted on 8 counts, including first-degree murder for the deaths of Raul and Brisenia Flores, attempted first-degree murder of Gina Gonzalez, and other related charges. Ford received a death sentence for her role in the murders, making her one of 3 women on Arizona's death row among 116 inmates. Rosie Alfaro Maria Del Rocio. Rosie Alfaro, born on October 12, 1971, is a convicted murderer on California's death row for the brutal killing of 9-year-old Autumn Wallace in Anaheim, California, in 1990. Autumn, home alone, innocently opened the door to Alfaro, a known acquaintance of her family. Alfaro, high on heroin and cocaine, lured Autumn into the bathroom under false pretenses and viciously stabbed her 50 times with a knife taken from the kitchen. After the murder, Alfaro ransacked the house, stealing items to sell for drug money, amounting to $240. Alfaro initially confessed to the crime during a police interview, but later changed her story multiple times, implicating different scenarios involving unidentified men. Despite her inconsistent accounts, forensic evidence tied Alfaro to the crime scene through fingerprints and a blood-stained shoe print. In the legal proceedings, Alfaro was convicted of first-degree murder with special circumstances. After a mistrial due to a hung jury in the penalty phase, a second jury sentenced her to death. She became the first woman in California to face execution in the gas chamber and remains one of the few women on death row in the state. Wendy Andriano Wendy, Elizabeth Andriano, born on August 6, 1970, is an American inmate currently on death row in Arizona. She was convicted for the murder of her terminally ill husband, Joe, on October 8, 2000. Wendy brutally attacked Joe in their apartment, using a bar stool to bludgeon him and a 13-inch knife to stab him in the neck, inflicting 23 blows to his skull. She initially called 911 claiming he was dying but turned paramedics away, then later reported she had killed him in self-defense due to his alleged abuse and her affair revelation. Despite her claims, she was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to death by lethal injection on December 22, 2004. Her appeals, including claims of prosecutorial misconduct and unfair trial proceedings, have been ongoing since her conviction. As of January 2018, she is one of 3 women awaiting execution on Arizona's death row, known for the financial motives alleged in the crime. Samantha and John Allen. Samantha Allen and her husband John were convicted in 2017 for the murder of Amelyn Deal, a 10-year-old girl from Phoenix, Arizona. Aim died from suffocation after being locked inside a Foot Locker, a victim of long-term abuse by her family. Samantha Allen received a death sentence for first-degree murder and 74 years for child abuse. John Allen was also sentenced to death for his role in the crime. They are among the few women and men on Arizona's death row. Carrie Lynn Dalton. Carrie Lynn Dalton, born January 24, 1960, was convicted of first-degree murder in 1995 and sentenced to death by lethal injection. She remains at the Central California Women's Facility in Chowchilla, California, awaiting execution while appealing her sentence. Despite challenges to her conviction, including issues with evidence and alleged prosecutorial misconduct, Dalton's death penalty still stands. Her case has drawn attention through media portrayals, including a feature on the Discovery Channel's Deadly Women. Cynthia Kaufman. Cynthia Lynn Kaufman, born January 19, 1962, is an American serial killer convicted for her involvement in the deaths of 2 women in California in 1986, alongside her boyfriend James Marlowe. Their crime spree included the kidnapping and murder of 4 women within a short span. The victims were Sandra Neary, 32, Pamela Simmons, 35, Corinna Novis, 20, and Lynell Murray, 19, all targeted between October and November 1986 across California and Arizona. Kaufman and Marlowe were apprehended on November 14, 1986, after Kaufman confessed to the murders. Kaufman's defense claimed she suffered from battered woman syndrome due to Marlowe's abusive influence, alleging she was coerced into participating in the crimes. Despite this defense, she was convicted and sentenced to death in 1990, marking her as the first woman in California to receive a death sentence since the state reinstated capital punishment in 1977. Also, Kaufman was later convicted of another murder in 1992, receiving a separate life sentence. And that's all we have time for. Now before you leave, make sure to like this video and also hit that subscribe button for more such content in the future.